Ask any child growing up where they'd like to play football one day and you'll get largely the same responses. England, Spain, Italy, all of the trendy and prestigious locations of the game's global appeal. One place they're not likely to say is the Faroe Islands. An archipelago of 18 rocky islands in the North Atlantic Ocean sees an average of 300 days of rain per year, and 13 degrees Celsius is regarded as a hot summer's day. The island's 50,000 inhabitants are comfortably outnumbered by its 80,000 sheep. But none of this has stopped the Faroese adopting football as their national obsession. Statistically, one of the most football-mad populations on Earth, roughly 10% of the entire country plays regularly, it's about to embark upon the next stage of what's already been an incredible, implausible, arguably impossible European journey. This is the amazing story in European football that nobody's talking about. This is KOI Klaksvík. Hailing from a town of just 5,000 people in a valley perched between two fjords, and with a stadium that holds only 2,500, KOI have become the first Faroese team ever to qualify for a European group stage, thanks to not one, but two shock victories. Historically a giant of the Pharaoh Islands Premier League, the 20-time champions became their country's first ever invincibles last year. In 27 matches, they won 25 times, drew just twice, and conceded only 7 goals. But with their domestic season running from March to October, they had to wait fully 9 months for their crack at this season's Champions League. They'd lost narrowly to Norwegians Bodo Glimt in the first qualifying round of last year's competition, and after being given a COVID-enforced first-round bye against Slovian Bratislava, were dumped out by Young Boys of Bern the year prior. In short, they'd never technically won a Champions League tie, so few gave KOI any chance when they prepared to face Hungary's Ferencváros in the first qualifying round this July. Yet, after a tense 0-0 home leg, they stunned their more illustrious opponents on away soil, running out 3-0 victors. It was a result that was met with disbelief in Hungary and the Faroe Islands alike. A day later, the squad received a hero's welcome when they arrived back in Klaksvík, and a significant proportion of the town lined the streets. There were flares, there were fireworks, it was a huge, huge deal. In the second round, KOI took on Swedish champions BK Häcken. Again, they managed a goalless draw at home, prompting their opponent's official social media account to declare that they would return to Sweden to win the tie. The second leg was a classic, a topsy-turvy match that ended 3-3, with KOI winning out on penalties. The celebrations among the sizable travelling contingent were not just for another giant killing, but the fact that by winning this tie, they'd made history. Not only had they become the first Faroese side ever to reach the third qualifying round of the Champions League, but they were now guaranteed to become the first team from the islands to play in some sort of European group stage. This is by far the best time to be a fan of KOI or of Faroese football as a whole. Tormund Danielsson, chairman of the club's Blue Wave fan club, tells FourFourTwo in this month's issue. This European run has already been incredible. Even if KOI lost their next qualifying round of the Champions League against Norwegian title holders Molde, they'd then drop into the final qualifying round for the Europa League. If they lost that, they'd still go directly into the group stage of the Europa Conference League. Now, if that feels like weak criteria for an incredible European story, keep in mind the fact that the Faroese club's players are all semi-professionals. They all hold down proper jobs elsewhere. Striker Arne Fredriksberg, who downed Ferencváros with a brilliant brace, runs a food import business by day. 2 other players work for the local electricity company, with KOI's social media posting pictures of them installing power lines the day after their historical European triumph. KI astoundingly defeated Molde 2-1 in the first leg of their third qualifying round tie. By that stage of the competition though, UEFA stadium regulations meant they could no longer even play at their home ground in Klaksvík. Instead, they hosted the Norwegians at the Faroes' cosy but smart national stadium in Tórshavn, 2 islands further to the west, accessible via sea tunnels, one of which even contains an underwater roundabout. You've seen this stadium before, of course. It was the subject of Richard Key's famous daft little ground silly game f*** off comment during Sky's coverage of the Euro 2008 qualifiers. Granted, it wasn't the worst off-air incident that was leaked during his time at the broadcaster, but it's certainly the one that's left the biggest impact in the Faroe Islands. The return leg wasn't to give them the fairy tale outcome. They lost, albeit bravely, in Norway. but not before taking another Champions League tie to extra time before going out to a 112th minute winner. This set up a Europa League playoff against Sheriff Tiraspol. After a 1-1 draw in the first leg in Torshavn, KOI fans were advised not to travel to Tiraspol, the capital of the unrecognised state of Transnistria within Moldova, due to tensions that have grown since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Instead, KOI fans gathered together in front of a big screen to watch their side play the second leg, which Sheriff narrowly won 2-1 thanks to a 76-minute goal from Armel Zahouri. Given that the Moldovan champions stunned Real Madrid at the Bernabeu just 2 seasons ago, there was no shame in this defeat, and KOI knew a place in the Conference League group stage was waiting for them in any case. When the draw was made on September the 1st, they were placed into Group A alongside Lille, Slovan Bratislava and Olimpia Ljubljana. They started the group in typical fashion, taking a shock 1-0 lead against the Slovakian champions before former Manchester City winger Vladimir Weiss broke their hearts with a late winner. Regardless though, with one of the trickier away ties now out of the way, their hopes of progression remain high. KOI are already set to reap the financial rewards of this season's European exploits. Their earnings for their summer's work will be vast by Faroese standards and have opened a debate in the country about how they best spend their spoils. One area that may need to be addressed is that of their home stadium to allow them to play all of their future European games in Klaksvík. It's also been suggested that the club may buy some of their semi-professional players out of their day jobs. It's a move that everyone agrees would smash a ceiling, preventing further progress, but which could lead to further imbalances in the domestic league, where most other clubs are understandably miles away from being able to make players professional. Investing in their homegrown players and their new academy system, which was set up 2 years ago, could be a further boost to the Faroe Islands national team, who are already creating their own shockwaves, beating Turkey in the Nations League last year when they took an impressive 8 points from 6 games. They'd of course previously created headlines during qualifying for Euro 2016 when they defeated 2004 champions Greece home and away. That loss to the Faroes at home saw Claudio Ranieri sacked, fatefully leaving him free to take the Leicester City job. And while KOI Klaksvík might not be on the verge of doing a Leicester themselves, they've already been the shock story of European football this summer. It's taken a whole heap of courage and a talented squad, but they've made history for Faroese football. The club are writing a story that will be told in Klaksvík for generations, and if they get their wish, it's a journey that won't stop here. If you'd like to read more about the incredible story of KOI Klaksvík, you'll find a full feature on them in this month's issue of FourFourTwo. Written by Paul Watson and including contributions from several people connected to the club, it's available now from all good retailers.